Hi, Jeanette. Thank you for being here with me today. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. Very excited.
It
Yeah,
is, and we're going
myself.
to talk about White and Faded. And I had just mentioned to you, I saw on your Instagram when you got the first copy and opened the box, and it's just so exciting. I'm just so excited, just so happy for you. And we're going to talk all about it today because I think it's so beautiful what you've done. It's really such a metaphor of a book.
Thank you so
Um,
much.
yeah, so let's tell the audience just briefly about yourself before we dig
Yeah,
in.
so I have a very long name. My name is Jeannette Parrella van den Berg. So I'm raised in Holland, but lived for many years already in English-speaking countries. So now you know
Mm-hmm.
where my accent is coming from. I'm an interior designer, interior photographer, and I would say just in general designer of all kinds of things. So I love art and just creating beauty. That's my passion.
That's great. And I really, I found that the main theme of your book, and you and I talked about this too, is about restoring beauty. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot deeper than just design. It's very much a metaphor. And so before we dig into, the book is aesthetically gorgeous. The photography
Thank
is
you.
beautiful. Everything you do is beautiful. Um, but let's get into the meaning behind it first because it really runs through the whole book, I
Mm-hmm.
think. Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So so what I just said, I have this desire for beauty. Um, but the one thing I was missing in my own life, so maybe I have to start earlier. So I have been married before, and I had a quite challenging marriage, in which I have lost my complete identity of who I was as a woman, and I have to say I've been 21 years together with this man, and I found myself after we split up, I found myself I had a big mask. I just, because of my desire for beauty, I think I had seen beauty in the wrong way. I
Mm,
saw beauty more as on the surface, as long as you look happy and content, and your
uh-huh.
house is just beautiful, everything is good. What I didn't understand is that the true beauty lies inside of you, of who you are,
Mhm. Mhm.
and yeah, so that's the theme throughout the book, I think, is to find yourself, to find the true beauty inside of you. um that Yeah, I think it's kind of like explodes when you start to create yourself. I have to say, when I found myself doing things where I find this joy inside of me, and all of a sudden this kind of hit me, kind of like, oh wow, it's that beauty, it's that true beauty that is inside of me that's coming out, in what I'm doing. So I think
Y
that's kind of like the theme of
Well,
the book.
yeah, it's an amazing journey, and I think you give an example of, like, you can take an old beat up piece of furniture, a dresser that maybe
Yeah.
didn't mean something to somebody else, and then you take it on, maybe you buy it at a
Hmm.
garage sale or whatever, you restore it, and then it highlights, you even use this example, like, it's highlighted on a wall in a room, and now it
Yeah.
stands proud, now it stands with attention, now it's a focus. And I
Hmm.
thought that metaphor was, poignant and beautiful.
Yeah, because that's what I experienced myself. I was kind of
Right,
like thrown away, put in the garage, let's say this way,
right.
and then all of a sudden somebody found that that somebody was me, I think,
Yeah, yeah.
and
Which is the
found
most
it, and
important person. Yep.
mm, mm,
Mhm.
and I had to learn to place it back into a place of honor. That is
Yes.
being loved for what it is, and that's what with furniture. I 100% believed. I've had many things that I found in trash cans, even that people just thrown away, and I didn't restore it to the fact that I actually went through it and painted it or whatever. I just only placed it in another place to make that, what you just said, to give that honor, to give that, yeah,
Yeah.
purpose.
Yeah, and the
Pur-
theme of masks I find runs through your book too, and we'll talk about that a little bit as far as people's homes. I thought that was important and I see that a lot. So
mhm,
we'll talk about that too. So let's talk about using the color white to
mhm.
restore and refresh in our home. How just white transforms. It doesn't have to be another color, just simple white is transformative.
Yes, correct. I think first of all, is white is reflecting light, but it as well is showing impurities in a
Mhm.
way,
Mhm.
which will draw, in my opinion, draws that beauty even more out. Because if you have a piece of furniture that's in white, you see all the dents and all the little scratches and stuff like that, and that gives that life it has lived as a beauty part of that. But of course, white is looking clean. It gives a
Mhm.
feeling of freshness. It gives a
Mhm.
feeling of decluttering. It gives a feeling,
Mm.
because if you have a white room and you start to stuff it full, all of a sudden you start losing that white,
Yeah.
so you start coming back to, of to take away again. Just take it away again. Sometimes just only a white wall is perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
So
feel like
that's how.
white too, like for a fresh beginning, right?
Yeah.
Can
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
be. But
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
so fresh and it's calming and yet it can be used with a lot of other things. So I do think
Mm-hmm.
white is transformative. And in your book, the photographs really show that very
Mm.
well. It shows the shades of white and how light casting on them, just natural light, and ambient light, how that affects the, tone of it and the feel of it in
Yeah.
the home.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
the next thing we're gonna kind of get into a little bit is you grew up with a parent who was an antique dealer. I grew up in the antiques and auction business. It's kind of in my blood, rearranging
Yeah.
furniture, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned this in your book too, how your dad did become an antique dealer at some point. And so you, like myself, see the beauty in I guess what I call or what you could call, I think today's society would call flaws in furniture.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
for us growing up in the antique business, when you see patina, when you see the wear, that is just showing of authenticity,
Yeah.
and character. In today's world, in a lot of homes, people want everything so perfect.
Mm-hmm.
But in antiques, that's really not the case. But let's talk about kind of your dad going into the antiques business and how that inspired you to restore furniture, restore antiques. And you have some great stories about pieces you've transformed. One you and I spoke about. I think it's in your current home now. But let's talk about restoring furniture because I talk about it a lot because one, it's a very sustainable thing to do.
Yeah. Exactly.
Furniture made decades and beyond what ago was made so much better than today.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's made different, it has character. So let's talk a little bit about that and restoration.
Yeah. So first of all, if you're moving old furniture from house to house to house, it is still solid. Whereas new furniture, right? You take it apart, you're moving it, and it falls apart.
It's so much heavier. It's so different.
It's exactly, it's heavier, and it's much stronger, so it stays, in that one piece. um, and I mean, I had always this thing with when my son, because I have 5 children, and so three of my sons, then they would come, and it's like I need to move a piece of furniture. They're like, is it Swedish or French? Because if it's Swedish, it weighs a ton. If it is French, it's light, because the French are building much lighter furniture. But yeah, so I have appreciated the antiques only in the later stage in my life. It was,
Yeah,
I think, because my dad was so much into antique and everything was so dark and stuff, and I just didn't like that. I
yeah,
started off as well. My first ever flat I had only new furniture.
yeah.
After less than a year, I bought our first piece of antique
You go kind of the
because
opposite because I
I
get it.
know, I know. But I figured if I will paint it, it will actually be lovable.
Right.
So instead of having a piece that, is that dark? And it was like clashing with the rest of my stuff. I had, a white sofa and everything. I thought, if I'm going to paint it, all of a sudden it will brighten, have that light. So I have later, and I'll write about that in my book as well. Later on, I start discovering painted furniture in its original paint, which especially when you have the Swedish furniture, that is all in very light colors, because they have much more, like the weather is not always good, so they have much darker rooms.
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah, and so I think I discovered with that painting furniture is giving something new, something fresh, and all of a sudden becomes desirable, and it matches in a modern place. Because I have to say, if you have everything antique, like my parents have everything antique, if you're placing a modern item in it, it looks really bad, out of shape, out of place. If you have a very modern interior and all of a sudden you put one antique piece in, all of a sudden you have this like centerpiece that becomes like interesting and beautiful. And so it's very interesting how those things work. Yeah.
Yeah, the juxtaposition is beautiful. And again, I think carrying through the theme of your book, the restoration of something has so much meaning behind it.
Yeah.
And yes, paint does amazing things. And using high gloss lacquer can be like a modern way to do it. I used to have a business where I actually bought furniture from the 30s and 40s. It was like that heavy brown furniture. But I would look for things that, most of the things naturally had a lot of heavy, fun molding. And and they look sort of like brown and heavy, and no one would use them. And once I would paint them white, the molding would pop out.
Exactly.
And sometimes you didn't even need to change the hardware. Sometimes I did, but sometimes just the beauty of the paint made the whole piece. There was a piece when you and I were talking that you said you had. I can't remember what it was. It was like a multi-drawer. What was tell me about that piece again. I think that'd be cool for the audience to hear. You really transformed that.
Oh, so the one with all the drawers that I have.
Yes, that one.
Yeah. Yes. So I don't know what I did talk to you about before, because that one is in its original paint and I didn't touch it.
Okay.
So I think it's something else that I spoke about, but I just
there's another piece I think you had that you might have even restored it more than once, but you changed new hardware, and you were saying how it still sits in your house and it's a very loved piece is the point. And I think again it goes back to that message of that sort of unloved and loved with the deeper meaning. But I tell clients all the time, I'm very into repurposing. So sometimes a client will have a piece and I'll look at it not just as I see it up front, but the lines of it and the silhouette. And I'll say, oh, but if we do this to it, and we have literally with decorative painting, transform pieces where clients are like, I feel like I have a whole brand new piece of furniture. I don't even feel like that's the same piece. And but then they love that it is, because they know underneath it's the piece they've always had in their home. Maybe it had sentimental value, maybe not, but it's just so it really is fun to do that. And like you explain, it has much deeper meaning.
Yeah. So what I said, restoration is not always you need to use paint or a hammer. It is something that is in the heart as well, in your heart.
Yes, very much so. So I think, especially now, people really love white, living with it. White's coming into walls more. I know so many of my clients are like, I'd love a cream or a white sofa, but they're afraid to do it. Because the way lifestyles are with kids and pets, and you had 5 kids. So let's talk about, I think this is a really good one for people, because I think people want white. They want to have white. What are some tips for living with white with children and dogs and just the way our lifestyles are? Can it be achieved? Can we do it, please?
Yes, totally. So I started having white interiors when I was 21. So you can imagine I had all my children all living in white houses.
Wow.
And the funny thing is, it didn't scar them because they're living as well in white houses. So that's very important to know. Yeah, no, for me, I started straight away with quilts. Quilts over a sofa is doing wonders.
Yeah,
Kids are going, although you tell them don't go with your feet on the sofa, they still do. I mean, when
right,
you're not looking, they do. So try
right,
to tell your dog that, right? So,
right. Yeah,
so I worked with quilts. I worked with slip covers. Slip covers are an absolute must for me as well. There's some
yep.
furniture you can buy already slip covered, or otherwise I will make my
Yes,
own
a
slip
lot now.
covers.
Mhm.
Yeah, made my own slip covers, and that way as well with paint. So I used always wipeable paints on the walls. In the
Yeah,
time when my kids were really little, they didn't have that yet. So
uh-huh.
what I did is to have on, like, let's say chair height, I would have everything underneath. I painted high gloss and above it matte. So the high gloss you could just wipe off.
That's smart.
And so I had my floors, I had always white. The thing is that I did teach my kids, don't walk with shoes in the house. When you come from outside, take your shoes off. Um, I had little tricks for that, how to stimulate them, to think about, to remember. It's
Right,
like, oh yeah, I have to take my shoes off. And
right.
yeah, so, and as well, I mean, with the dog as well, same thing. I mean, we have a big golden retriever, and
Yeah.
we live in the countryside, and he's outside and he just wants in. I mean, he doesn't know how to wipe his feet, right? So I wish he did. But yeah, and on the other hand, I always say, because people say, yeah, but how can you have whites? And I'm like, because it gets so dirty. And I'm like, but you see the dirt. That's a good thing. So actually, you live much cleaner because you see that it's dirty. That means you're cleaning it, right? And not like somebody is crawling on my floor because it was just dark and they didn't see the dirt on there, and then afterwards they have their knees black. So
Yeah, I mean,
so yeah.
don't you Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I just want to say you do, if you really really want white, you have to be disciplined. I mean, that's the one thing, you have
Yeah.
to be disciplined and say, okay, I do want the quilts on the sofa when you're sitting on it. When I can take it away, because I just have it nicely folded, but when the kids came home, I just put it over the sofa, or I mop the floors every other day. You have now this nice robot mop, so yeah.
Yes.
It's life is much easier now than it was 30 years ago.
So it's a little
But yeah.
I guess we could say it's a little more maintenance to do it. Do you think, though, it might be easier today to do it? Because I am finding so many of the fabrics are, like, indoor, outdoor, and cleanable. So you can get
Yeah.
now, a lot of sofas, let's say, or upholstered pieces in this fabric now. The fabric has changed a lot where, it's a washable f even though it's upholstered, you can spot clean it. It's a little bit more stain resistant. I think that's helpful too, don't
Okay.
you?
Yeah, so I don't know that. I'm very much somebody who takes linen and cotton
Yep,
as my fabrics, and they're easy washable. If it has stains in it, I just throw it in the washing machine with some bleach or with
yep,
other products that I just. And that's the thing as well. If you have light blue, right, and you put it in the washing machine, you can't put any bleach in it. With white, you can just bleach it, and I have alternative bleach, so I'm not ruining the environment with normal bleach. But
yeah,
yeah, so yeah, I use a
yeah.
lot of good products for that. Yeah.
No, I mean, I think that's great. I just bring that up because sometimes when people are ordering new things and whatever, they're in these fabrics that are like that. I do like the
Mhm.
fact that you can just wash them. In fact, I
Mhm.
had a friend years ago and she said, and this is when we had little kids, and she's like, "I'm switching all my towels and bedding to just all white." And I was
Mhm.
like, "How come?" And she goes, "Because I can put it in the machine, I can get
Yeah.
it clean and white. All these
Yeah.
other colors that come out, and sometimes something else hits it in the wash, or like you
Yeah.
said, you can't
Yeah.
really bleach it." And I said, "You know what? That's really smart. I have all
Mhm.
white towels now. I have most of the base sheeting, all the fitted sheets and all that are all white." And,
Yeah.
I will say it does kinda actually make it easier.
Yeah. It does. 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
So
Yeah.
there is an
Yeah.
I guess I'll tell everybody out there, there is an advantage to white. And
Mhm.
even, you mentioned using quilts on, and blankets on some of the seating. I've even found, you can have made, out of the same fabric, like a
Yeah.
coverlet. And
Yeah.
so when the coverlet is on the sofa, it matches and it
Mhm.
really it's great, I think, especially for pets, because like you said, they just jump right up and, you know, you can't once in a while. I mean, you have a little story in your book, I think, where the kids ran in from the rain to show you something. They were so excited.
Yeah,
And it was like, whoa, but you fixed it and you cleaned it up. But
yeah,
yeah, you know, it can be
yeah,
done. It
yeah,
just takes some maintenance.
100%,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah, no, I love that. Um,
yeah.
one thing I noticed when I look at your beautiful pictures on Instagram of your interiors is that the room will be layers of various shades of white and cream, and there will be an object, usually, whether it be a table in a kitchen or just a small side table on a chair, that's a really rich, dark piece of weathered
Mm-hmm,
wood.
mm-hmm,
And I
mm-hmm.
love that juxtaposition. I'm wondering too if that comes from where you were surrounded by so much dark furniture, like you mentioned, when your dad was buying antiques, if that sort of plays into why you do that, or it's something else. But I'd love to talk about that juxtaposition.
Yeah, so would not say that has anything to do with my parent because I like more the rustical. If it is dark wood, has to be rustical. Like for
Okay.
instance, our ceiling, we took our ceilings out, so we have the exposed all beams,
Mhm.
and it's the rustical on it that I love. And as well, the little tables have to be rustical. Otherwise, just normal, smooth, let's call it smooth antique,
Yes,
dark furniture, no, that's for
I
me,
got
that's
it.
going to be painted. Yeah, but it
Yeah.
has to be that rustical that I really love. Or what we did as well a lot is I actually like, I don't know if you heard of Mora clocks. They are antique clocks from Sweden,
Yes.
and so we actually took the layers of paint off. We stripped them completely to the original
Wood.
pine. And yeah,
Oh,
because it's pine wood, and but because of time, so normally pine gets really like yellow or
yes.
orangey, but because
Very.
this has been over time old, the wood gets really dark, and so it's really beautiful. I have a couple of them in my book, and at home, of course, still. But I love that as well. You see that craftsmanship of how they were making it, how they put them together. And that's the one thing where you have exposed, so there's no lacquer on it, no wax, just nothing, just bare wood. And
Yeah,
that
it's
that
raw. Yeah,
rustical,
yeah.
yeah,
It's raw.
that
You may think
rustical, yeah,
go ahead.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I just want to say you see where it's been fixed together. If you have those little milking stools, they called, which I use
Yes.
as little side tables, they just have holes in it, but they just put the legs in. And I love that because you can just correctly see that. Then one is broken, they fix it, they just glue a piece underneath it, and you can see that when you paint it, it's finished, it's gone, you don't see that anymore. So that's why of those really rustical items, I like to keep them in dark wood, or in middle color dark, let's say this
Yeah,
way,
like a
wood.
brown. Yeah.
And I love that with white. It is that standing out. It's almost that same as what I said earlier when you have a modern interior and you put one antique item in. So this has the same effect. It's like all that white and all of a sudden this one dark little table, and just
Exactly.
magic.
It's that
Magic.
whole
Yeah,
idea of using opposites, and I tell clients all the time, like, having balance. So, if the
yeah,
room was all white with sleek
yeah,
white furniture, that doesn't it's about bringing those things in,
yeah.
and yeah, it's sort of that weathered wood where there's, like, these nooks and crannies. If
Mm-hmm.
if the side has a hinge or a nail, you see it, or like you said, it's just a simple joint, you
Yeah,
see it, and it's like seeing kind of its raw element, and that
yeah.
raw element against white is really
Mm-hmm.
interesting. And I found
Mm-hmm.
that too with people who have like some people have a lot of old rugs with heavy bold prints and some heavy furniture. And if you paint the room white, all of a
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
sudden you can have sort of this modern twist to that rug. You
Yeah,
could put like a
yeah.
white sofa with that rug that has maybe navy blues
Correct.
and
Yeah.
whatever. And then all of a sudden it takes on this whole other feeling. So I think,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll let the audience know on her Instagram page and in her book, you will see this, and it's just really beautiful how it's done. I love that juxtaposition, so I wanted to talk about that a little bit.
Thank you.
Um, yeah. So since we're talking about white, I can't not ask you, what are some of your favorite color whites? I mean, and for the audience, I know for the audience, picking paint colors is always a challenge, and until people go to pick white, they don't really realize how many shades of white there are, and as we know, there's so many. So,
Yeah.
what are some of your favorite whites?
Yeah, so first of all, I would say white is the most colorful color there is. Not
Mm.
only in the amount of paint colors you have in white,
Mhm.
um, but as well as how the light is working in it. And so for me to say what's your favorite white, I don't have a favorite white. For me, it is I'm looking to the room. I'm looking like, is this room, does it have high ceilings, has it big windows, is it south
Mhm.
facing? Then that means I can have a cooler white. If it is north facing, small windows, low ceilings. If I go for a cool white, it becomes cool and lifeless. And so you need to
Okay.
have a warmer white. So then I'm going for a tint of more like a beigey color in it, in the white. So it becomes like a really, really light latte coffee color. So a favorite white, that's the funny thing. So the same thing is the question I get all the time. What's on your walls? What is your favorite color? White. And what color is that? And I said, I can give you the color name, but it's not going to look the same in your house. I can tell you that it's the time of the day when it's been photographed. Sometimes it looks like I have yellow walls. Sometimes it
Mhm.
looks like I have blue walls. It's just because the time of the day. And if it is south facing, if it is west facing, north, whatever, that makes all the difference. So if I do as well interior tips, so I do interior tips online, and I ask the people, first question, ask how high is the ceiling, how tall are your windows, and
Mhm.
how it's facing. If it's south facing, I know exactly what colors to use, but which
Mhm.
whites. If it's
Mhm.
north, I know as well what to avoid and what to take. So I think that's the best advice. You can all test it. I say always to the people, so test it just with your hands. But put your hand this way, that way, that way, and all of a sudden you see that, if you have a little piece of paper on that, you see how different the color white is on all those. And so never buy white by just a little paint strip. Always put it on the wall. Always
Yeah,
get to
always
test the
sample
pot.
and like not to pin you into this, but I would say to the audience, if we even and we mentioned colors on other episodes, my audience knows if you hear of a color, because I'm all about I see people crowdsource what color that you have got to sample it in your home because whatever looks good in my home and you like it, you could bring it home and it's awful.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
say,
yeah.
vice versa. I guess, are there any go-to whites that, again, it's not going to work in everybody's, but either brands or colors that you do think are pretty and that work
Yeah. So
nicely in a
if
lot of
if
spaces, not all?
yeah, so if I paint in my own house, I know much more what to use. I use brilliant white a lot. So just pure brilliant white. A lot of brands are doing that same color. Then you
Yeah.
have all white is another paint. I'm not sure if I can mention paint
Oh, yeah, you can. I
brands. Yeah.
think isn't all
Okay.
white Farrow and Ball? Is all
Yes,
white?
correct.
Yeah,
Fair and
right.
Ball. And then you have shirting from Little Green.
Mhm.
And that's my favorite. That's I think you can't get that everywhere in the US. But it's my absolute favorite. So shirting is it what the name is saying. It's like a white shirt. It's
That's
like
so
white.
nice.
Yeah, and it is neither cool or warm. It is
Mm.
proper how you would imagine white to be. Because if you have paper white is always a little bit bluish.
Yes.
And so if you put this one on the white paper, it comes across a little bit yellowy, but it's
Yes.
absolutely not. On the walls, it looks perfect white. And all white are from, you just said it, Fair and
Farrow
Ball.
and Ball.
Yeah, Fair and Ball is the second to go for me. And
Yeah, it's a pretty color. Who
it's
makes
very nice. Yeah,
who makes shirting? Sorry, who is the paint manufacturer of shirting?
a Little Green
Oh, okay.
company. Little Green company. And green with double E-N-E at the end.
Yeah, I'll have to see if we can get it here. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I know you can. I have a couple of clients that actually managed to find it, but it's not
Okay.
everywhere. Yeah,
Okay.
so yeah, but those are my absolute first. If I go for white, that's the first white I go for.
Right. It might
Um,
be, yeah, as we say, that's your go-to, meaning what you're gonna try first, not where I'm gonna say to the
yeah,
audience, it doesn't mean you're gonna put it up because it may
yeah,
not work, but those are the ones you
exactly.
try.
Yeah, they're the first ones I go for, and in my own house because I understand the light. I know
Yeah.
we have painted everything in our areas here, all in brilliant, pure brilliant white, and it works amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
Yeah,
yeah.
Brilliant White is probably similar, there's a line and, it's called Bright White. I think it might be Benjamin Moore has Bright White, which might be
Yeah,
similar
could
to
be. Yeah,
Brilliant White. I'm not sure, but,
yeah,
I get
yeah,
on that idea.
yeah.
Yeah, well, you have given us really, so much, and I'll let the audience know the book is just beautiful. I highly recommend it. The photographs will inspire you, and then what Jeanette was just talking about as far as picking out your paint color based on light, she actually gets into that in the book to describe it and help you. And
Hmm.
I think that's a really good tip. It's like before you even go to the paint store or grab a sample, she has a section in her book about talking about southern light in the house and starting there. So I'll just let the audience know that. So let's close the show. You've given us a lot of information, but if there's any last tips or advice you want to impart, feel free.
Hmm.
And then I would love to have you list your social media platforms, website, where to get the book, and we'll put all the links in the show notes for everybody, so they can. The book launched on August 29th, so it's out. It's been out for about a week now, and go grab it. That's all I can say. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think one of my favorite tips to give. I have a lot of people that ask me about antiques and how can you see if something is antique, genuine, if it
Mm,
is vintage, if it is just a replica. And so I'm giving a lot of tips in the book about that as well. But my last tip that I'm giving, and I think that is a good tip, is like get what your heart makes, your heart beats faster, makes your heart beat faster. I think that's, for me, I have hundreds of different stylists in my house, and I do everything. I have a disco ball in my house. I have an antique cupboard right next to it, and I have a 1950s chair, and all of it goes together. Why is that? Because it's all my heart beats faster. I don't have things in my house I don't like. If I don't like it, it's something that I use every day, and then it's in a cupboard. I don't have it on display.
right.
And so I have everything that I love, I place together, and that makes it work. Don't follow trends. That's what I want to say. Trends are in and out. Don't do it,
I always
especially
say that's
when
why they're called trends.
exactly, especially when you're doing a kitchen or a bathroom, because after a year you regret the colors you've taken. Just take traditional, but do what your heart makes beat faster, not what people tell you to do. I think that's my
I
advice.
love that you said that, because I try to impart every day. People have such a lack of confidence doing their home, and I try to say you have it within you. Whatever you absolutely
Exactly.
love, whatever makes
Exactly.
that kind of feeling rise up in you to go, "Oh, I love that." That's what you live with, and stop worrying about the trends and stop worrying about, well, this room's different than that room. Like you, I have a lot of different things in my house, but when
Hmm.
someone's in my house, I don't think they feel like it's like a circus of mismatched things.
No,
We
no, yeah.
we do tend to gravitate towards some common denominators, and
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
I love that you close with that. Let us know, social media platform, um, webs if you wanna kinda spell them out here for the listeners, and then, we'll put it in the show notes. So for Instagram, I'm not sure if you have a website, and then, best places to get the book. I'm assuming it's gonna be available on Amazon.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Mhm.
So for my Instagram, I have two Instagram accounts, or actually three. The main one is called White and Faded, and it's
Okay.
with underscore in it. And I have my personal one where I'm showing much more stuff, like some crafts I work on, I'm making pottery or sewing something. And so I do that a lot, little tutorials on it as well. So that's my full name, so Jeanette Parrella van der Berg. And then I have joined with my husband an account, and that's a fun account that's all about house renovations, and it's called
Mhm.
Our Old Country House. And there we have a very high engagement with people that are all renovating themselves. And so I do house tours there. When we are in a renovation project, we share all of that. So that's more like a fun, but as well informative place. Then we have websites called whiteandfaded.com or .co.uk. So we have
Great.
two, both lead to the same.
Yep.
And then, of course, my book available on Amazon, Target, I don't know, all kinds of every big major bookstore.
Yep.
My book is available. So worldwide, that's an amazing thing. That's for me like, wow.
Fabulous. Fabulous. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're going to put all those links in the show notes. Yeah, and probably if they Google the book White and Faded, it's published by
Yeah.
HarperCollins.
Yeah.
And you guys can pick up a copy. It's absolutely a joy. So
Yeah.
it's been great having you here. I love that you took the time to talk about it. We're happy to let everybody know about it. And congratulations on getting it launched. I think, what did you say? It was how many years in the making, the book?
So, officially or unofficially? I would
Well,
say,
you can tell me whichever.
yeah, so I would say 5 years in total I've been
Okay.
working on it.
Yep.
But the last 2 years I've been really proper with a proper concept working on it.
And
So
getting it. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. But
yeah, yeah,
it's years in the making, and most people will say that when they launch a book. So it's sort of like
yeah.
birthing a baby. You're like,
It
"Whoa."
it is totally. And as well, my aim for my book was not to become famous or to, to sell a lot of books. My real heart in it has been always I want to reach out. I have such a desire for people to be restored, and to enjoy their home. And so that's my whole um, purpose reason why I did this. And I'm incredibly thankful and for all the favor I have received in this. And yeah.
Yeah, I think that's why I find it so beautiful. It's not just a decorating book.
No, yeah.
Um, it is much more than that, and it's a beautiful metaphor. So thank you again, Jeanette, and cheers to selling a lot of books. They're great. All
Thank you
right.
so much.
We'll
Thank
talk
you.
soon. Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.